I'd like to invite you to let go of all shame, all of it, all shame about all the ways that you have perhaps engaged with life or do engage with life in ways that are difficult, not the best version of you showing up. Feeling fear, feeling doubt, feeling uncertainty. Recognizing that perhaps you are attending to or engaged in different relationships in ways that you're not doing great. You could be better. You could be doing it differently. To let go of all shame for all the ways that we as human beings engage with our lives based on our conditioning, based on our programming, based on our wounding, based on all the things that we were taught by mom, dad, school, media, the world that tells us that in order to be loved, in order to be worthy, in order to be valuable, you have to reach certain standards of excellence. What if you allowed yourself to be human? To have stuff to work out, to have things that you're working on transcending, letting go of, finding your way through, healing. We are often taught that in order to be acceptable, we have to be exceptional. If we're inadequate in any way, we should have shame around that, for not having figured it out yet, for not having gotten beyond that yet, to being less than what we know we possibly could be. And one of the ways that we can start to let go of our shame is to get really honest about where we learned all of the beliefs and behaviors and limiting ways of thinking, what experiences, conditions, environments, situations, families, parents, school, where did we learn all of these illusions that we are not lovable unless we have addressed and solved all of our inner pains and conflicts and difficulties? And when you go back and you really look and you say, oh my God, yeah, God, I learned that from mom. I learned that I was only lovable when I behaved. And I learned from dad that I was only lovable when I excelled. And I learned from media that I was only acceptable when I succeeded, when I won, when I was the hero, and not when I was scared, and not when I was weak, and not when I was afraid and fragile and vulnerable. I was not worthy of love until I got beyond all of that and got my act together and finally figured it all out. And when we look back and we look at how much BS we learned, how many lies we took on as truths because we didn't know any better, we can start to look and say, oh my God, no wonder I live with perhaps a closed heart. No wonder I strike out at others who are in any way putting me down or not believing in me or not validating me. No wonder I have this anxiousness around being in relationship because I'm just going to get abandoned and love is going to hurt. And so maybe I'll just stay safe. And I'll keep people out. You start to look and you start to recognize, oh, no wonder. Of course I live in these ways. Look at the way I was raised. Look at all the things I was taught. Look at the environment I was raised in. And I would invite to replace shame with compassion. And think of it this way. If a child came to you with a wound, with a broken arm, that didn't allow them to play like the other children were playing, would you shame them? Would you shame them for having been so stupid as to break their arm? And now look, you can't do the things that these other kids can do. Maybe the arm never heals correctly. Maybe they're wounded in such a way that they can't play like the other kids play. Would you shame them? Or would there be the opportunity for compassion and say, well, of course you find it difficult to play in these ways because you've got a broken arm. To allow that there's parts of ourselves, huge parts of ourselves, that are afraid, that are fearful, that are doubtful, that are programmed to not feel good about ourselves. Programmed to feel that in order to be acceptable, I have to be exceptional. And until then, I'm not worthy of love. Those are wounds. And to stop believing the collective lie that says to be wounded is to be less than, and to be less than is to be unlovable. What if you could allow for all the ways that you created a limited sense of self based on mom, dad, school, media, consumerism, social media, traumas? What if you could allow, of course, that's part of the human experience. And there's not a human out there that doesn't have programming, conditioning, and wounding that has given them a false sense of reality about life and about themselves. So the invitation is to replace shame with compassion. And try this on. Try this on. Meditate for a bit on the possibility of what if you decided, I am never going to feel shame again. Or when I feel it, I'm going to notice it, and I'm going to choose to even love that. I'm not going to feel shame for feeling shame. To actually decide, I'm done with shame. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. It has no value. And of course I live with these difficulties and these things to overcome and these dynamics of my psychological and emotional being that need to work some things out. Of course I have those. Look at the ways I was raised. Look at the environment. Look at the things that I was taught. Look at how I created a sense of reality from a young mind that didn't know how to make sense of all of it. What if you were done with shame? What if you were done with shame and allowed yourself to be a rich and dynamic human being with things to work out and things to heal and struggles to get through, and that you are worthy of love every step of the way, first and foremost from yourself. Because no betrayal hurts as much as self-betrayal. When we abandon ourselves out of shame, that hurts more than the abandonment of anyone else because of their judgments and because of their wounding. So no more shame. Let it go. Just as you wouldn't shame a child for being hurt or wounded, maybe you can no longer shame yourself for being hurt and wounded. All right. Blessings, my friends. Be well.